God speaks to us in many ways. God doesn't need any words to let us know of His presence. We may not be aware of Him, but our loving Father is communicating to us, reaching out to us, trying to get our attention, because He is calling us to Him. Sometimes God's voice may be in different forms, and it may even come in the form of our daily crosses. God waits for us to respond. And in this powerful story, we hear of one such call and response. When we ask God for miracles, God often sends people around us because we are invited to become instruments of God on this side of heaven. 5 years ago, Tammy Peterson was given 10 months to live. Doctors removed half of her kidney, and the cancer surgery was successful, despite the grim prognosis. And then a medical crisis that doctors couldn't solve, which sent her back to the hospital. Queenie Yu, an acquaintance at the time, came to visit her and brought her a rosary. Their friendship blossomed as they prayed the rosary together at the hospital every morning for 5 weeks. Defying all odds, Tammy Peterson survived and thrived in her journey of faith and in her life mission of seeking and speaking the truth in her popular podcast. It was a full circle moment as Mrs. Peterson entered the Catholic Church this past Easter at Holy Rosary Parish in Toronto. Queenie, a convert herself, who introduced Tammy to the faith and to the Rosary, accompanied her as her confirmation sponsor. This story is about the apostolate of friendship and how newly confirmed Catholic Tammy Mary Peterson was brought to Jesus through Mary. Hello and welcome to the Veil and Armor podcast. This is your host, Sheila Nanato. I'm a stay-at-home mom and a freelance Catholic journalist. Seeking the guidance of the Holy Spirit and the inspiration of Our Lady, I strive to tell stories that inspire, illuminate, and enrich the lives of Catholic women to help them in living out our vocation of raising the next generation of leaders and saints.
Please join us every week on the Veil and Armor podcast, where stories come alive through a journalist's lens and mother's heart.
I usually start with a prayer. Did you want to lead, please?
Okay.
Yeah.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but direct us from evil. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. And welcome, Mrs. Peterson and Queenie Yu. It's been a while since I've seen you. And how have you both been? We last saw each other at the Easter Vigil. Very beautiful Mass and confirmation at that time. What have you both been up to? Who would like to start?
Tammy, I'll let you start.
Yeah, let me start. What have I been doing since then? Okay, let's see. So that was last Easter, and that was a lovely day. There were lots of people there at the church. I couldn't believe how many, but there were a number of people being baptized and a number of people being confirmed. So the church was full, and that was nice to see a church that's full. You see that on, it looks like big saints' days. Often lots of people come, which is good. It still shows that there's observance, and that gives me hope, you know. I guess I've been invited and welcomed by Catholics this year since being confirmed. I've had a number of people. I've done podcasts with a number of Catholics, and there's been Catholic. I went to a Catholic Dynamic Women of Faith conference in Toronto, and I shook hands with 250 women. That's a lot of women. So that was really, out of the ordinary, right? Out of the ordinary. So, and I feel God's hand in what I'm doing. That the road that I'm on is different than the road that I was on before, and that it's very meaningful and it's challenging. And there's no doubt I would not be doing this if it weren't for the inspiration that I get. And so I know now, I understand now that when you're working in God's will, that He puts you to work, and it isn't an easy road, but it isn't something that you can't do if you don't ask. If you ask for courage and strength, you can do it. And so that's been really insightful. So that's some of the things I've been thinking about and people I've been meeting.
And you, Queenie?
For me, well, I've gone back to Hawthorne School for Girls, an independent school for girls in Toronto. The school year began in September, and I'm doing character education, so helping the girls to develop virtue, good habits, um, and help them live their life. Because one thing is knowing what's in the textbook, and another thing is respecting people, doing good in the community, having a positive attitude. And actually, yesterday we had a session on emotional intelligence. Imagine with teenagers. And we studied a case of a fictional case of two teenage friends who are getting into an argument, and the girls explored the emotions of each of those girls while they were before and after the argument, and also the emotions of the family members who would see these girls being irritable or withdrawn. Or so we studied emotion, and we helped them to see life from another person's perspective, and hopefully that will help them to make better decisions and maybe not judge others so quickly. So that's just one of the things that I do with the girls. I also live at Kinter College with 22 university students. So in the daytime, I'm with many, many girls. And then at night, I'm with 22 more. So never a dull moment. And one thing I like about um, my friendship with Tammy is I can always ask her for advice on how to deal with difficult situations, because she's a mom. She's been through it. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm older. There's no doubt about it. So I have grandchildren now, and I have one grandchild who's 7 years old, and I introduced her to the Rosary yesterday.
Amazing.
And it was really, what was really nice, and I didn't know this would happen, but she, it was, I was up at 6 in the morning for a meeting, and she got up about 6:15, so she was up very early, and it was just her and I. And when my meeting was over at 6:30, I asked her if she'd like to learn the Rosary, and she said sure. And so I introduced it to her. We did the first mystery. So we did the beginning and the first mystery. That's as far as we got. But I was able to say, you have an eternal Father now, and you have an eternal Mother. And this eternal Mother will be on your side. No matter what you do ever, anything in your life, she will be there for you. And your eternal Father has been there always and is there now and will always be there. And you can always rely on him. And it was so nice to be able to say that to this little girl who has good parents, but you never know what'll happen, because we all are broken people and we all have things that we're dealing with, but we have an eternal Father and an eternal Mother. And so even if the road gets bumpy in your family, you have a very strong rod to hold on to. And that was really wonderful to be able to share with her. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is amazing. And your friendship has been forged in faith. It started with Our Lady, the Rosary, And it's beautiful to hear that you are passing that on, passing that knowledge, and that the miracle that you have received from our Lady, from our Lord. It's also been, I guess, 5 years since your miraculous healing, since you told your husband, I'm going to be healed on our anniversary. Did you commemorate that? Did both of you commemorate that sort of anniversary at all, your friendship and then the healing that came from that?
We not in a big way, you know, but we definitely stopped for a moment to, you know, reflect on that miracle and that it was that day. So that makes our anniversary every year much more special, you know, because it is a time to remember that uh, that God is there, was there, is always there, and now we have a day to mark that. So yeah, that's good.
And Queenie, how did you reach out and just decided I'm going to visit my friend Tammy and introduce the rosary? What made you decide to do this?
Well, we weren't really friends at that time. I had her email address. We were more like acquaintances. But I know that anybody who's in a lot of pain or who's experiencing a lot of suffering would find a lot of consolation in the rosary. So that's why I decided to visit Tammy. And yeah, immediately she embraced it. So that's great because not everybody's so open, right? Um, yeah, and then she was willing to try it, and I was amazed that she found a lot of comfort in praying the rosary. And then one day I asked her, like some people when they're going through a difficult time, they can rebel against God, but you're getting closer to him. Why? And I remember her saying that in difficult times she used to turn to yoga, but it wasn't enough and she needed more. And that's why she was turning towards prayer.
Yeah, and it gave me so much comfort, you know, in times of when they would scan me looking for this leak that they couldn't find. All my nutrients were uh, really just seeping out into my legs and not nourishing my body. So I was wasting away. And this was over months at a time. And so I was in the hospital. They were just keeping me alive, looking for answers. And Queenie shows up and offers me a rosary. And I'd seen a rosary before. You know, when I was a young girl, I didn't go to the Catholic school. I went to the Protestant school. But I had a friend who took piano lessons from the nuns. And so now and then I would wander over to where the nuns stayed. And so I had a little bit of, you know, and I knew a little bit about Catholicism, but not very much at all. But for some reason, I was familiar with the rosary, and I don't know why. It may have been when I was very, very young, because it turns out, right, my great grandmother was Catholic. And so I did meet her, and I remember seeing her in the nursing home when she was 104. So she was an old lady, and she was still with it. You know, she wasn't. I remember meeting her. I thought, you know, this is a very old woman. It's always kind of a shock when you're a little kid to see someone like that, but it's a good experience to go and see elderly people, because we will all, if we're lucky, become elderly. And maybe at some point there, because I know that my great grandmother kept her rosary with her. And so maybe I was introduced to it then. And so when you introduced it to me, it seemed like a friend that I could get to know better, you know? That's what it seemed like. And so when you offered it to me, it just seemed like the next right thing to do, to say, okay, let's see how this works. And so it was really good you had the time to do it. I appreciate that.
The amazing thing is you mentioned that you found a lot of comfort in the rosary. And some
Hmm.
people, when they're in pain, they're just thinking or they're just praying to God that God would take away the source of their suffering. But the source of the suffering was still there. You still had your cancer, but you received comfort from the prayer.
Yeah,
And
that's right. Well, I had a big, I had a huge change of heart when I told my son I was going to die, and I looked at his response and saw the grief in his eyes that he was going to lose his mother. And I saw the love that I had for him reflected back to me in a way that I had never had that done before. And it was redeeming, it was redeeming. It was, I have loved this boy, this man, really, for 30. He was not 30, but he was getting close to, I guess he was 25 or so then. Yeah, because he was just newly married. He didn't have any children, and now he has two and is expecting a third. So it was it was a while ago, and I thought, I don't know. It was just I had loved my kids. I had loved my kids, but in a dutiful way, I think. Like, these are my children. I love them. I want to do everything I can for them, so that they will prosper. But it wasn't exactly in a biblical way. And when I told him that I was maybe going to leave him, and I saw his response to me, it reflected back to me this work that I had done to be a mother and to put in the time to do the things that a mother does was enough. It was enough. What I had done was enough to, it was enough to be worthy. It was enough to make, to feel worthy of what? Of God's love, I guess. It was such a transformation. I think it'll take me the rest of my life to understand, because these things happen. If these things happen, and I didn't even see this happening, because I could feel I felt all of my doubt, all of my suspicions, or I had misunderstandings about authority. I was pretty skeptical of authority. I'd had some issues when I was 17 with an employer, and I tried to do the right thing, and then they didn't support me, and so it could put a bad taste in my mouth. And I kind of kept that with me over time, because I guess I wasn't counseled at the time very well through that time to understand what happened. And so, but all of that just seemed to, all of a sudden I was lighter. I was much lighter, and I felt peace fill my body. And that that was such a moment of grace that it's hard to understand, because it's too much for me. It's too much for anyone to really understand something that is that spiritual, that is that totally spiritual. It wasn't of this world. That's how it felt. It wasn't of this world. So to even understand what that means, I think will take the rest of my life. But at that moment, my son looking at me that way made me feel worthy of accepting medical attention with gratitude, but not thinking that I had control, that God was in control, and he was going to be the one who decided whether I would live or die. Just at that moment, it's like, no, it's not up to the doctors. It's not up to, it's not necessarily up to how much we try. It is really just up to God. He will decide how this is going to go. But, in the moment, it's us taking the next right step. So accepting the help that comes our way, but not being overly controlling and make and forcing things, but to see where the doors open, I guess, right? To see where the doors open and not to worry about the outcome, the future, because that's God's territory. And that all became very clear to me in that moment. So it changed my relationship with illness. So when I was sick and in pain and being scanned all the time and not getting any answers and sitting in the hospital bed for 5 weeks, so it was a very long time of the doctors not knowing what to do with me. uh, I I didn't think about what the future was going to hold, because I didn't know if I had a future or not, and it wasn't up to me to decide. So every time someone came in the room, I was grateful for them to be there. And at night, when I was sleeping and I was cold because I had lost a tremendous amount of weight, I would wake up in the night and I would just pray the Lord's Prayer. And that would sustain me through all of the scans, all of the cold nights. I'd pray the Lord's Prayer, and that would just sustain me. I wouldn't worry. I didn't let that happen. I stopped those thoughts and I just prayed instead. And that practice over time has stopped my mind from worrying on the most part. But if it doesn't, that means I'm not praying enough. That's really what that means. Yeah.
That's beautiful. You talked about control, or like that we shouldn't want to control things, that God has a better plan. And how often we forget that because we have our schedules, we have our goals. But God's goals, you could say, God's plans for us are so much better than what we could imagine. And if you had not gone through that illness, or if you had experienced it and then prayed it away right away, would you have gotten all the wisdom that you already have right now? Probably not.
Oh, I don't think so, because this is it's a daily practice, right? It's a daily practice to submit to God's will every morning, and sometimes a few times during the day when it's a tricky day, and at night to be grateful and thankful for the day. And that is what helps me to stay with whatever gift I have been given, to benefit from the gift that I was given, the gift of life. Really, it was the gift of life and the gift of what is that? I was feeling nurtured and loved in a way that I had never felt before. It could have been that, our mother and our father, just like I told you that I talked to my granddaughter and told her about her eternal father and eternal mother. My mother and my father, they did their best, but sometimes I wanted attention and it wasn't coming my way. So the love that I needed wasn't always available. And so little children, they will do anything for attention. They will do anything for love. That's what they want. They want love. They don't want new toys. They want love. They want attention. They want someone there. When they turn their gaze towards you, they want someone to be staring back at them. Like, that's what they want. That's what this little boy who's 9 months old that's here, he crawls a little bit and then he looks at me. Is it okay if I'm going in this direction? Or am I making progress? Is this the way to go? He's looking and he's asking. And I don't think we stop doing that. We continue to do that. And we find that feedback from our community, right? Without community, on our own, we get lost and we make bad choices. But within a community, if everyone is trying to adhere to what is best in life, so their intentions are honorable, so that means that their intentions is to be with God's will, then you can look to each other in that community and find your way forward, even when you're lost. But when you're alone, if you isolate yourself and you aren't open to God's will, ooh, that's a dicey situation and it'll get you in trouble. It's not a good plan. It's better to humble yourself and say, really, I need other people. I need my mother. I need my sisters. I need my community to help me find the right way forward, to take feedback from people, because we will often have made decisions that aren't the best for us or for other people.
Yes, and I wanted to ask you both, since you are both helping young women, really young girls, young women, to become women of God and to be role models. What is it about? Because you had, Mrs. Peterson, you had taken the name of Mary as your confirmation name, and Queenie, you were there standing beside her on that beautiful day. What was it? What is it about Mary, who in our culture, she is really the anti-hero, because she is not the quote liberated woman. She is a woman of God. She humbled herself to accept God's will. What is it about Mary, when you looked at Mother Mary? What was it about her that you said, yes, I would like to model myself after her?
Well, Mary said yes to the angel Gabriel when he came to her. She, in humility, even though she didn't understand, and that was not her intention, her own intention. It was God's intention, and she was humble and she said yes. And so young women today are taught that their career is going to be the most fulfilling endeavor that they ever undertake in their lives. But Mother Mary represents, she is a mother. That's why she's called Mother Mary. She's a mother. And that made her into a woman. And I think that this silly question that we've had this year about what is a woman, it's because we're looking for Mother Mary. Mother Mary is a woman. She's given herself to others. And others is also us on tomorrow and forevermore. That's others as well. But it's not us today in a hedonistic, momentary, whimsical manner. It's us over the long term with deep thoughts about what is best for us and for our loved ones, and maybe even branching out into our community and helping those that are farther from us. Mother Mary is a figure that is not putting herself first. She's putting Jesus first. And so she is putting what is her function, her the next right thing is for her to give up whatever it is she wanted to do and to give herself over to what the angel Gabriel has instructed her is the next right thing to do. And she just gave herself over to that without thinking. She had no husband. She had Joseph there, but he was not the earthly father, so that would have been disconcerting for him. So whatever it was she was doing was not going to be an easy road, right? It wasn't an easy road. It was a rough road. And just because the road is rough doesn't mean it's wrong. Right? We have to look more deeply at what is calling us to see if it is something of God or not. Because you're not always called by God. You might be called by power, right? You might be called by money or status, prestige. And women who are racing after status, there's absolutely no correlation between status and attractiveness to men. Status for men. Women look for men who have status. So it's no wonder that men are, playing the game of who's going to climb the hierarchy fastest, because whoever does climb the hierarchy fastest is going to be he's going to be more attractive to the women who are also at the higher point of their community. But that doesn't work that way for women. Women have to be humble and have to be paying attention to their intuition, because we are very good at taking care of ourselves and of one another. Whereas men, they are pretty good at getting out there and getting things done. And it's not as if women are not good at getting things done. We're very good at getting things done. But as Margaret, or as Mary and her sister, was it Margaret? No,
I think
I
Mary,
got her name.
Mary.
Mary, when Mary and I think Margaret,
Martha?
anyway, went to Christ. Martha, yes, Martha, and Mary sat at Christ's feet, and Martha busied herself. She busied herself, and then she looked at Mary and was skeptical of what Mary was doing, whether it was as worthwhile as what she was doing. And that's something that we're doing in our society now. We are educating young women to be worker bees in the workforce, right? So they're getting ready to be independent and to be financially independent, and not needing any men to take care of them. And that we're told, well, women can do anything, but that message has been twisted, right? Women can do anything, and we've made that sound like it's something that we should do in the male realm of things. But the whole idea of women being able to do anything, that could also mean that if we are attentive and careful, that when trouble comes, we can see our way through. So it's the intuition and the attention to each other in the day-to-day that women are very, very good at. And I know that there's now and then there's a woman who's different and exceptional, and that she is not going to be one of those. Maybe she's, I don't know, a sculptor, or maybe she has a vision that takes her far beyond her community. But most of us, we're pretty good in our communities. We can function in there, and the thing is that our babies, they look up to us in within our communities to see what they ought to be doing. And if we're not there anymore, if we've flown the coop and gone off and on the adventure of our lifetime, but it's away from our community, then we're not there to foster their development and encourage them to be good people in the eye of God, and to take on difficult things, but the right difficult things that are in keeping with what would foster themselves, their family, and their community. So girls, so that's where the modern idea of what is best has veered off from what Mother Mary is all about. At least that's what I know anyway.
Tammy, you mentioned earlier that what children want is to be loved, and they want attention. So that's what Our Lady does. She's always looking after us. The smallest needs, for example, at the wedding of Cana, she noticed that they were running out of wine. It's something small. It wasn't even her job to be looking after that. Like, she was a guest. She wasn't organizing the wedding, but she noticed that small detail. And that's just an example of the small like, if you don't have wine, okay, it's not the end of the world. You won't die from not having wine. Yeah, you're going to get embarrassed if you're the bride and the groom, but it's not the end of your life. So the fact of that detail being important to Our Lady means that everything in our life is important to her. Um, she's paying attention to us. And the other thing is, what you mentioned, Tammy. I remember when I was still finishing up my MBA, I was talking with a prof, and I mentioned that I really wanted to work in a high tech startup because, oh, that's so cool. And he said, I think it would be a waste of your talent because you like working with people and you care about people. You won't be able to exercise that aspect of you in a high tech startup. But after I graduated, I was like, no, I want the high tech startup. And then years later, what am I doing? I'm working in a school, helping young women to try to be the best version of themselves. And I genuinely find that fulfilling. And I find that, yeah, I'm trying to learn how to be a parent. Not that I'm a parent, but to educate young women, it involves the heart of a mother. And I look to Our Lady for example. So, for example, um, if a girl feels like, I don't know, feels that you don't like her, and it could be her perception, but if she perceives that you don't like her, she's going to be totally closed, um, and won't listen in class, won't hear anything you say. Uh, so, what do I try to do? I try to interest myself in what she likes. Okay, she likes that type of cartoon. I'll find out a bit more about it. She says that she has a bit of a headache. I'll ask her how she's feeling. Um, and the
Attention.
next, yes.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
then when I do that, I notice that the next day she has a better attitude. And then
Oh,
we could,
yeah.
she learns better. So, yeah, I learned that from Our Lady. And she pays
Mm-hmm.
constant attention to us. And she's trying to direct us to God all the time. Yeah.
So we don't have to worry because we just have to pray and to pay attention and to see what the next right thing is to do. I find that sometimes I'll be um, distracted by my worries about my family, so the people in my family, and they're doing well. They're doing well. All of them. They're doing very, very well. And so I have realized, and I continually have to convince myself that they are doing a great job, and it's their relationship with Mother Mary that will bring them in the right direction, and that she's always there, and to have the faith and the trust that she's always there. So I still have, but it'll take time, it'll take time. It'll take more prayer and maybe who knows how long, and I'll be able to grow my relationship with Mother Mary so that I believe and trust that she is there and she's taking care of all of us. And that way my worry will be minimized.
While each person's faith journey is unique, a common bond is the interior struggle. The struggle with self and the struggle with God. In the Bible, we read of Jacob wrestling with God, prevailing with God by faith, and his radical transformation afterwards. A new name and the gift of God's blessing for his life and mission. For Tammy Peterson and Queenie Hugh, both former atheists and now converts to the Catholic faith, her journey towards God has also led to a new life, the birth of a new woman in Christ, inspired by the feminine genius of Mary, our Blessed Mother, and with a mission to help others know the message of hope in our faith, in the power of prayer, and the unconditional love of God. Join us for part 2 when we look at the cross and the meaning of sacrifice, and how Tammy's role in the recently launched We Who Wrestle with God book tour of her husband, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, was inspired by the search for truth and perseverance in faith. Thank you for joining us. God bless.
Thank you for listening to the Veil and Armor podcast.
I invite you to share this with another Catholic mom today. Please subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel, and please spread the word. Let's be brave. Let's be bold. And be blessed together.